Every single morning, millions of retail investors wake up, check the price of their portfolios, and genuinely believe they are making independent, rational financial choices. You look at the green and red candles on your screen, read a few headlines, and think you are in control of your financial destiny. You are not. According to behavioral economists at the National Bureau of Economic Research, the vast majority of our financial decisions are not independent at all. Instead, they are merely predictable, algorithmic reactions to a mathematically rigged game board designed long before you even opened a brokerage account. Welcome to Unfiltered Finance. We do not exist to promise you overnight wealth, and we absolutely will not sugarcoat the brutal reality of the global markets. While the mainstream media feeds you narratives of infinite growth, the underlying mechanics of the system operate on entirely different physics. Today, we are going to systematically deconstruct the 15 invisible economic laws that are currently running the world. These are the hidden structural mechanisms that silently and continuously extract wealth from the uninformed masses on a daily basis. And where does that extracted wealth go? It is seamlessly funneled upward, directly into the hands of institutional players and monopolistic conglomerates. You might think of the economy as a fair marketplace where hard work and good analysis are automatically rewarded with financial success. But the reality is that the global economy is a highly optimized extraction machine, operating strictly on the principles of game theory and resource scarcity. This is not a conspiracy. It is simply cold, hard mathematics, and the natural consequence of human behavioral incentives scaled to a planetary level. Whether you are buying groceries, negotiating a salary, or allocating capital into equities, you are participating in a zero-sum game of survival. You cannot rewrite the foundational code of this macroeconomic machine, nor can you wish away the mathematical gravity of these 15 laws. But by understanding the precise rules of the board, you can stop being a predictable pawn. Let's begin with law number 1. Law 1. Supply and demand. It sounds elementary, but it is the ultimate weapon of market manipulation. When a multinational conglomerate artificially restricts the supply of a new product, they are not actually struggling with global logistics or manufacturing bottlenecks. Instead, they are deliberately engineering scarcity to maximize profit margins. In this controlled environment, demand elasticity is aggressively weaponized against basic consumer psychology. But the game gets much more structural when we look at Law 2, scarcity. Unlike artificially restricted tech products, the physical universe itself is entirely finite. Resources like arable land, fresh water reserves, and rare earth metals, such as the lithium required for your electric vehicle batteries, are strictly limited. There is no central bank on Earth that can simply print more physical land or minerals. Institutional investors and massive corporate entities thoroughly understand this zero-sum reality. While the public is distracted by volatile market trends and meme-driven euphoria, these institutional players quietly accumulate tangible, scarce assets across the globe. They secure the physical foundation of the future economy, while retail participants are often sold infinite, heavily diluted digital illusions. We have established the structural board and the absolute limits of physical resources. Now, let us examine how you move your pieces. Law 3. Opportunity cost. In the retail mindset, there is a systemic belief that some financial decisions are free, or at least neutral. But in this structural system, there are no free decisions. There are only invisible receipts. Every single dollar allocated to a depreciating consumer asset is a dollar that is mathematically prevented from compounding in a broad market index fund. Let's apply this to the current period of aggressive monetary expansion engineered by central banks. If you choose to hold your wealth in fiat cash, assuming it acts as a safe haven, your opportunity cost is the mathematical erosion of your purchasing power. You did not just save money, you actively paid an invisible penalty to inflation. This is the brutal, unforgiving math of game theory applied at the individual level. Institutional players understand this perfectly. They never leave capital idle. They calculate the opportunity cost of every single transaction, hedging against the erosion of fiat. Every time you say yes to a short-term comfort or a depreciating asset, you are simultaneously saying no to your future financial autonomy. We now arrive at a fundamental biological limit of the human condition, one that the capitalist machine desperately tries to hide from you. Let's examine Law 4, Diminishing Marginal Utility. This law dictates exactly how much satisfaction you can extract from the physical world. Consider a simple physiological reality. The first unit of consumption, say a slice of pizza when starving, provides immense neurological satisfaction. However, by the 10th unit, that satisfaction drops to 0 and eventually becomes a negative consequence. You literally become sick from overconsumption. Economists call this the law of diminishing marginal utility. This presents a catastrophic structural problem for a global economy that is strictly predicated on infinite, continuous corporate growth. If consumer satisfaction naturally peaks and declines, how do massive conglomerates maintain their accelerating quarterly revenue targets? They must force you to keep buying. The answer is the aggressive weaponization of psychological marketing. They no longer sell the utility of the product. They sell an engineered illusion. Corporations allocate billions of dollars annually to bypass your logical processing centers, aiming to trigger artificial, short-term dopamine loops. It is literal behavioral hacking. They mathematically design ad campaigns to convince you that the next arbitrary purchase will finally fill your existential void. It is a deliberate trap. But the underlying math dictates that it structurally cannot. You are continually buying the first slice of pizza, hoping for a permanent neurological fix. This dynamic keeps the gears of the capitalist engine turning at maximum velocity, fueled entirely by your manufactured, perpetual discontent. Notice the profound asymmetry in this system. The institutional elite do not hoard these depreciating, rapidly obsolete consumer goods. They know better. Instead, they acquire the equity in the very corporations that are successfully selling you the illusion of infinite utility. They own the infrastructure. They own the entire casino. You are simply pulling the slot machine lever, chasing a chemical reward that is mathematically programmed to diminish over time. We have established that consumer satisfaction hits a mathematical ceiling. But what about the corporate machine itself? Welcome to Law 5, Diminishing Marginal Returns. The absolute limit of production and capital efficiency. Imagine a constrained manufacturing facility. One worker operating a machine generates a highly efficient baseline output. Adding a second or third worker optimizes the process further. Division of labor causes output to rise rapidly. But if you cram 100 workers around that exact same machine, they don't produce more. They obstruct each other, causing logistical chaos. This is diminishing marginal returns. You cannot endlessly throw capital or labor at a constrained structural problem and expect linear growth. This law applies directly to global macroeconomics, particularly in the life cycle of developing nations. A developing economy grows rapidly in its early stages by simply adding cheap, abundant labor to basic manufacturing and infrastructure. But eventually, they exhaust that demographic dividend and hit a structural wall, widely known as the middle income trap. Without genuine technological innovation, injecting more capital into a stagnant system yields strictly negative returns. This is precisely where several major global economies find themselves today, stagnating under the immense weight of their own scale. Central banks desperately attempt to bypass this law by artificially lowering interest rates and flooding the system with liquidity. But printed money cannot operate a machine or innovate a new technology. It merely inflates the prices of existing, stagnant assets. Institutional capital detects this plateau instantly. They quietly rotate their wealth out of these declining regions, leaving retail investors holding the bag. These first 5 laws form the trap of finite resources. Next, we will expose the players actively manipulating the board. You are watching Unfiltered Finance.